Shingon, or True Word branch of esoteric Vajrayana Buddhism, has had a widespread following in Japan since its introduction by China in the 9th century, where it was called Zhanyan, which in Chinese also means True Word. Shingon is considered an attempt to reach the eternal wisdom that only the Buddha possesses, which was not expressed in words, and, thus, not in any of his public teachings. It is understood in this sect of Buddhism that the devotee can only realize the inherent unity of body, spirit, and mind as the Buddha did through a series of precise actions. The sect believes that the wisdom of the Buddha may be developed and realized through special ritual means and actions. These acts consist of ceremonial hand gestures, or mudras, expressions of spiritual speech, or mantra, and the contemplation and concentration of mandalas, which represent the mind. The whole is intended to rouse a sense of the pervading spiritual presence of the Buddha that lies inherent in all living things. A very important traditional element of the Shingon Buddhist sect is the mandala. A mandala, one example of which being the one you see before you, were first mentioned in ancient Buddhist scriptures. Within the literature of esoteric Buddhism, descriptions can be found of the structures in which deities dwell. These structures are often called mandalas. The essential composition of a mandala is based loosely upon the different classes of tantras, or Buddhist mystical or ritualistic text. In India, there are 4 different classes of tantras. The first 3 consist of the Kriya tantras, or the rites of magic, the Karya tantras, or rites of religious practice, and the Yoga tantras, or rites of yoga. These values lie at the core of Mahayana Buddhism as well as the Shingon sect. The 4th class of tantra is Anuttara Yoga, or rites of supreme yoga. In the first 2 classes, deities are classified under 3 distinct families, the Buddha family being governed by Sakyamuni, the Lotus family by Avalokitesvara or Kannon, and the Vajra or Diamond family by Vajrapani. Devotees to Buddhism were accepted into the sect according to their capacity to relate to one of the 3 different families. The Buddha family was generally meant for those who were spiritually advanced, such as monks. Those belonging to the Lotus family tended to worship benign deities, while those in the Vajra family tended to worship horrific deities. All of these deities and families are represented in the mandala, and sometimes even further classes are added to the assortment of families, such as the Gem family and the Sword family. Each of these sections is governed by a Buddha, who resides in the center, as well as a set of 4 bodhisattvas, who serve as attendants at each of the 4 directions. The most important of all mandalas in esoteric Buddhism in Japan are the mandala of the 2 worlds. This is also called the Ryokai Mandala, and has 2 separate components, one being the Diamond World Mandala, or Kongokai Mandala, and the Womb World Mandala, or Taizokai Mandala. These 2, combined in the Mahayana branch of esoteric Buddhism, are meant to represent the entirety of the Buddhist cosmos. The 2 were first introduced to Japan by a Japanese disciple of the Chinese esoteric master, Hui Guo, named Ku Kai. The Diamond World Mandala, which you now see, represents reality in the realm of Buddha, the world of the real, unconditioned, universal, and absolute. Its structure is made up of 9 squares, each the same size, each technically a mandala in its own right. It is said that each of the 9 squares is separately studied by devotees, beginning in the middle and working downward to the east, then leftward and up, then across the top border, and finally down the right edge. There are, of course, other ways to study the mandala, but this is the most commonly used method. The Diamond World Mandala is also known as the Kongokai Mandala, or the mandala of the 9 assemblies of the Diamond World. These different assemblies go as follows: the Perfected Body Assembly, the Samaya Assembly, the Subtle Assembly, the Offerings Assembly, the 4 Seals Assembly, the 1 Seal Assembly, the Gosanzi Assembly, and the Gosanzi Samaya Assembly. The Womb World Mandala instead represents reality, as it is revealed in the conditional, individual, and relative world. These two are only fully meaningful, however, when paired together. They can be found in Shingon Buddhist temples as well as monasteries, as well as other settings which put emphasis on esoteric Buddhist teaching. During ceremonies, the two are hung facing each other, the Diamond World Mandala on the western wall, and the Womb World Mandala on the eastern wall. A central altar is placed between them, and smaller square altars which represent horizontal mandalas are set in front of each hanging mandala. These are covered with ritual objects, such as bells, as well as offerings such as candles and flowers. Bowls and other dishes for water and incense are also placed on these altars. Mandalas are also used for many other rituals, such as initiation rites, or kanjo. In this initiation, 2 monks are led blindfolded into a sanctuary, where one mandala is placed on an altar. The monks being initiated are given flowers or other sprigs, which they are expected to throw. Whichever figure of the mandala the flower or sprig lands on is decidedly the personal deity of he who threw it. Needless to say, mandalas are a highly spiritual and focus-based element of Shingon Buddhism, meant to instruct devotees in the way of Buddha. It is meant to challenge the mind with complete memorization. Being able to immerse oneself in the image of a mandala without even looking at it is the ultimate feat that a mandala presents to a Buddhist monk. This can only be achieved after hours and hours of meditation, and brings one closer to enlightenment, and therefore closer to Buddha.